440 Chrysler 6-pack carbs. Currently working on rebuilding, refurbishing, and just basically getting it base tuned on these 3-deuce setups. Sorry, I keep saying 3 deuces, but I've been corrected several times already. Chevrolet ran 3 deuces. Chrysler / Mopar runs a 6-pack. But the carbs I picked up from the customer were 2300 series 6-pack carburetors for a 440 big block. I've seen these carburetors bolted to the intake. I don't know for sure, but I suspect the intake and the carburetors are not factory originals. I think these are older aftermarket carbs and intake, and I'll tell you why. Because the 6-pack setup for Mopars came with a 350 to 355 CFM center 2-barrel and 2 500 CFM outer carburetors. So for you guys doing the math, that's a 1350 to 1350 total CFM of carburation for these stupid 6-pack setups. Well, these carburetors that I picked up, all 3 have accelerator pumps, all 3 have metering blocks, and changeable jets. Okay, for anybody who's not familiar with these setups, when you research Mopar 6-pack and you try to look up anything to do with tuning, troubleshooting, you know, whatever, all of the setups you find out online have vacuum operated outer carburetors. So not only do they have no accelerator pump, they do not have a metering block with changeable jets. They instead have one of those metering plates that mounts inside of a short fuel bowl and allows you to originally from Holley, you would only be able to change your jetting, so to speak, by changing or drilling that plate. Well, the factory carburetors that we've all found, or that I found, trying to research this 6-pack setup, all had vacuum diaphragms that operated the outboard carburetors with no accelerator pump, which apparently is a horrible design, causes all kinds of dead spots and bogging and just all kinds of crap. It takes a lot of work to try to get those things to work properly. This is the 2 outboard carburetors. Something I will say is the outboard carburetors have a metering block, but they do not have air-fuel mixture screws. Down in the carb dip, which I admit is getting kind of dark, is the center carburetor, which is only 355 CFM, according to my Holley reference manual. It has accelerator pump, metering block, changeable jets, and air-fuel mixture adjustment. The outer carburetors have a metering block, no air-fuel mixture screws, changeable jets, and accelerator pump. Well, my customer got on the phone, called a company called ProMaxx, and they seem to be very knowledgeable about these 6-pack setups, so he spent a considerable amount of money buying all the recent updated, you know, billet metering block and all this for the center carburetor. Only problem is his carburetors don't match 100% to what I feel is the factory setup, and apparently ProMaxx has that same idea. Just let me just say, I have had to pick and choose from, I'm going to show you this, I don't want nobody to laugh. This sandwich bag is the rebuild kit for the center carburetor that ProMaxx sent. I would have to look at the customer's invoice to see how much they charged him for it. But I'm really surprised in this day and age that anybody would send out these cheap 30cc accelerator pump diaphragms. Every gasoline that I can purchase has alcohol in it nowadays. This plain rubber diaphragm is a joke. That should be the green alcohol compatible accelerator pump diaphragm. They did go ahead and send the non-stick blue gasket, which I will point out are the appropriate gaskets for the center carb. You know, that 2 thumbs up for that. I did get a needle and seat I can use, a new power valve, that's all fine. The kit for the center carburetor, no major complaints. I'm going to put in their fancy billet metering block so the customer will be happy and it'll look really cool. Yay, we're on board, everything's going good. Let me walk around to the back. This is actually where I'm working right now because I've got so much porting crap going on my workbench that I would dare never mix carburetor rebuilding and head porting. But I wanted to show you, this is where I've been working. Out of the kits, one of the main components that are the kits for the outboard carburetors, so many of those gaskets and parts are don't even apply to these carburetors. I'm going to be able to use the gasket that goes between what's called the throttle body or main body and the base plate. And I can use that gasket from all 3 kits because they matched perfectly. If you have a keen eye, it might be hard to see. Center carburetor 355 CFM, outboard carburetor 500 CFM. It's not an optical illusion. Those holes are way smaller than these. Basically what you end up with, 1355 CFM mechanically operated carburetors. So in a sense, this is a 1355 CFM Dominator split into 3 parts. I hope his engine's up to par because that's going to be one hell of a induction setup. But in these kits, again, not real impressed with the sandwich bag, especially for the price that was paid. Wrong metering plate, because this is made for a metering plate instead of a metering block, with no changeable jets. Wrong gasket. They sent huge by huge vacuum actuation or activation diaphragms. Again, wrong carburetor, doesn't apply. I can use the throttle body to base plate gasket. I can use this needle and seat. I can use those nylon float bowl washers or whatever, and I can use the gasket between the intake and the carburetor. Everything else, not usable. If you'll look, these are the old gaskets that came off the center carburetor, which clearly someone has been into that carburetor before because Holly back in these times didn't put blue non-stick gaskets in them. This is the second outboard carburetor kit, which again has a blue gasket and a huge by huge vacuum actuation diaphragm, all of which is not usable because it doesn't apply to these carburetors. I don't want to think that ProMaxx sent him something that he didn't need on purpose. I want to think that what they did was send him rebuild kits and parts for a factory 6-pack setup. Clearly, these are not factory setups because when it has a mechanical activation for the outboard carburetors with changeable jets and, you know, like a racer would set up, that's not factory in my opinion. So I don't know if this is an aftermarket setup that somebody bought, you know, back in the 70s or whatever. I don't know for sure. But I mean, everything down to the fuel line they sent was wrong. If you'll look at this really nice stainless steel and AN fitting fuel line they sent for the 6-pack setup, it came with the huge, I don't know if you guys can see them, those big fat fittings, like what goes on a 4150 style carburetor. Instead, he needs 3 of these little bitty AN fittings to a -6 setup to match the bowls on his carburetors. I don't want to make anybody dizzy, so I was trying to give you guys a little bit of look at some of these parts. I've got these all clean and ready for assembly, which is the three original factory metering blocks and both of the fuel bowls for the outboard carburetors. I have all that cleaned and ready for assembly, but like I said a while ago, we're going to probably go ahead and use the fancy billet metering block for the center carburetor, and I'll just send that original factory or original Holley metering block back with the customer, just in case he ever wants to change it back or return it to factory original. But 2 of the things that are going to have to be returned, I can't express to you how expensive these parts are, because if I told you how much was paid for these parts from ProMaxx, I don't think you would believe me. But they wanted to sell this base plate to the customer that converts over to an air-fuel mixture adjustment in the base plate of the rear carb only. Okay, let me just rephrase that. Why in the heck would you want to add air-fuel mixture screws to the rear carb only when the center carb comes with air-fuel mixture screws? I can't really explain it, but this will be going back to ProMaxx because this is not needed. It is for a 500 CFM 2-barrel, which you could not use it on the center carburetor if you wanted to. This little sandwich bag, again, we've gone from sandwich bag down to snack bag. ProMaxx sent these out. Beautifully machined aluminum metering plates, but are machined with changeable spots, if you can see those down in there. Changeable spots or holes where you can do jet changes. So basically, if you had this kit, you could use the factory setup and be able to change the jetting on your outboard carburetors to dial it in and make it run better. Well, the carburetors that this customer has doesn't utilize metering plates. It has metering blocks. So we're looking at a considerable amount of money, maybe more money than more people make in a week working, if that gives you any kind of a hint. So ProMaxx will be getting these 2 items back. I can only pray that the customer gets a full refund on those, because those do not apply to his carburetors whatsoever. But I'll be able to use the parts that I scavenged out of these sandwich bag rebuild kits. I can use parts of it. I went to Star Performance and picked up all new non-stick metering block and bowl gaskets. I got brand new factory Holley jet sizes for all 3 carburetors. Had to spend a little bit of money, but I wanted to make sure I got the good quality parts and got everything I needed to finish putting these back together. Had I not forgotten this little red jewel here, I would have gotten the new AN fittings for the fuel rail too, but I forgot to throw it in my pocket before we left, and I didn't want to buy it without having it there as a reference. But anyway, that's what I've been doing, just kind of messing with these carburetors and making sure I get everything set back to a big block Chrysler 6-pack jetting and tune and all that stuff. He has a fairly decent built 440. It's not like an all-out race type setup, so it's going to be just a mild, slightly above stock. Probably looking at 450 to 500 horsepower or something in that range. It could make more, but I wouldn't hold my breath. It's going to be a heck of a combo when you start talking about 1,350 plus CFM mechanically operated 3 2-barrel setup. I hope his engine's up to task, and I hope we can get that mechanical linkage dialed in to where he can cruise around on the 2-barrel and then hold on to everything he owns when he opens up all 6 barrels. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, working on these things. I had a customer bring a car to me a week or two ago, and he wanted to pull the top off of his Quadrajet. I told him I didn't really want to mess with that Quadrajet because I don't do Quadrajets. They're not my thing. So now I've got a basket case. Different situation. Because a part of the float mechanism was broken during this remove the top and put it back on procedure. So now I'm not working on it, but they're looking for a piece to replace the broken part inside this carburetor, because this was actually a not new, but freshly built carburetor that was tuned or set up specifically for that customer's old 350 rocket engine. So when I look at a Quadrajet, I think they're good carburetors if you know how to build them, but they have too many freaking parts. I just hate them. But nobody hate on me, because if you love Quadrajets, I don't blame you, because when they're done right, they run like a banshee. I just don't like working on them. So anyway, that's where we're at with ProMaxx, sending out product that I don't know. I'm gonna hope that it was just an honest mistake and we can get all this stuff cleared up, get everything cleaned up, and get these carburetors running and get them to the customer before he gets here on December 13th. Thanks for watching. I'll try to do some more videos as soon as possible. I appreciate it, and hopefully you guys are getting ready to have a great Christmas and even better Happy New Year. Thanks for watching.